When you think of giant robots in space, your mind probably goes to stuff like the Gundam franchise, Power Rangers Cross Sentai, Gurren Lagann, and for those of my own dad's age, Robotech.
Oh, come on!
I knew Battletech through its game title of MechWarrior, as the franchise has gone through a hell of legal battles and copyright disputes, having its mechs, characters, and stories all be scattered across the legal immaterium for years. Battletech was made in 1984 by Jordan Wiseman and L. Ross Babcock III, who was famous for creating the company FASA, which made tons of different tabletop games and card games. At first, they wanted to call it Battle Droids, but thanks to a certain War of Stars, and the name droid being copyrighted, they went with Battletech instead, and they would release 7 major expansions for this game of giant robots over time. However, things get, for a lack of a better term, fucked by the year 2000. FASA closed in 2001, and Battletech went up for sale. It was bought by WizKids, who renamed the franchise to MechWarrior Dark Age. However, they had to license the rights to a company called FanPro, who was a subsidiary of Fantasy Production, only for WizKids to be bought out by another company called Topps. However, since FanPro held the license for MechWarrior, Topps had to use the old Battletech name, and at this point, you should be wondering how me and other tabletop gamers haven't lost our goddamn minds yet. Basically, making a long, convoluted legal battle short, Microsoft owns the game rights, and a company called Tornate owns the film and TV rights, as well as Topps, who owns most other rights, including the tabletop game. But Catalyst Games are the current holders of the license, so they can produce the tabletop game and models. Basically, this is a hell pit, and people much smarter and more dedicated than I am have had trouble tracking everything down. I bring all this up so you all understand why Battletech is such a mess to get into, and why its fluff and games seem all over the place. Battletech is considered one of the granddaddies of tabletop games, along with D&D. It has a story that is arguably much more deep and complex than even Warhammer. And I have had tons of Battletech fans beg me to make a video on the series ever since I was on TikTok. So if you've been around that long, congrats! You got what you wanted by slowly breaking me down. So, what is Battletech? Well, it's a franchise of what-if giant pilotable robots, but more realistic compared to its anime-esque counterparts, with the future being a dystopian hellscape where the galaxy is torn apart by corporations, massive noble family houses, advanced tech clans, and mercenary warbands who fight each other for reasons. Officially, there are 9 eras of Battletech, and the game is designed so that you and your friends can play in any one of those timelines. So let's get this video underway and give you the need to know about Battletech and its history. The first era of Battletech follows our world history up to 2005, where somehow the Soviet Union comes back with a vengeance and starts a second Cold War on Earth. From 2005 to 2570 is the era of the Star League, a time where humanity began to colonize the galaxy, with tons of colonies seceding from Earth, which is now called Terra, and forming neo-feudalistic empires across the galaxy. These empires, known as houses, were the Federated Suns, the Draconis Combine, the Capellan Confederation, the Free Worlds League, represent, and the Lyran Commonwealth. Eventually, things escalated, with the first battle mech called the Mackie being designed and brought onto the battlefield, revolutionizing warfare in the Battletech universe. The Star League era would eventually get its name in 2571, as House Cameron unified the Terran hegemony, and with this alliance, they brought the other great houses across the galaxy into a league of alliances, with anyone that didn't join willingly are either wiped out or absorbed through wars of conquest. For 200 years, the Star League was ascendant, and everything was fine. Until an event called the Periphery Revolts broke out in 2765, started by a man named Stefan Amaris. The the revolts gave him the opening he needed to finally put the dick in dictatorship. He killed the leader of the Star League, which led to a massive civil war between the great houses and the collapse of the Star League. All of this led to a man named Alexander Kerensky leading an invasion of Terra, and unlike some other bald failure, Kerensky would succeed in killing the self-proclaimed Emperor of Terra, Stefan Amaris, and successfully ended the Civil War. The fallout of the Star League's collapse was dramatic, to say the least. This would lead to the era called the Secession Wars. After the Civil War, Kerensky took what remained of the Star League's defense force into exile, as he didn't want to be the kingmaker and felt the people of the galaxy should decide their own destiny. However, Kerensky left a power vacuum in place, and nature really hates that. So everyone began to scramble for what power they could get their hands on from the corpse of the Star League. The Secession Wars would see the great houses trying to reform the Star League, but that didn't work because each house kept sabotaging or going to war with one another for the right to rule, which led to a lot of technology being lost in the battles. This would lead to a quasi-religious order/corporation called Comstar rising up on Terra and taking it over, along with all interstellar communication. With this stranglehold on galactic comms, Comstar was able to influence galactic politics and wars to their benefit. Also, yes, this is Battletech basically saying that allowing religious institutions and these insane leaders to control sources of information is a very bad thing. Funny thing, Comstar is basically Battletech's version of the Mechanicus with a Christian spin on it. From 2900 to 3049, what is called the Inner Sphere became a hellscape of minor conflicts, with mercenary companies being used to fight wars across the galactic map for the Great Houses. These conflicts were manipulated by Comstar and other corporations wanting to get their hands on lost technology, though eventually two houses merged with an arranged marriage, and so House Steiner-Davian became the house in Ascendant and was set to re-establish the Star League. And with the discovery of something called the Helm Memory Core in 3028, we start to see a technological renaissance in the Inner Sphere. However, we can't have peace. This is a game for war, and peace is cringe! By the year 3050, a force calling themselves the Clans would appear on the outer edges of the Inner Sphere and begin the era of the Clan Invasion. Turns out Kerensky's exiled military hadn't died out in exile. When Kerensky and the SLDF exiled themselves, they had found some worlds outside of the Inner Sphere, and collectively decided to just stay there, creating the Pentagon worlds. And if Alexander had his way, that's where things would have ended. However, his son Nicholas Kerensky had other ideas. Nicholas is what we in the industry call a murderous sociopath. Nicholas, who suffered from multiple psychological issues, would come to lead what was left of the SLDF exiles, and shape their beliefs in history through lies and propaganda. This resulted in a society that was essentially a eugenics-obsessed caste system with the warrior caste on top. Nicholas manipulated all of this, while also taking out his rivals and basically making himself a saint-like figure in the history of the clans, saying that it was the clans' destiny to return to the Inner Sphere and take it back from the savages that took it away from them. Even though the reality was that everything the clans were indoctrinated to believe were lies, and Alexander had zero intentions or expectations of ever going back. This led to the titular clan invasion, when the merchant-class ship called the Outbound Light was captured by Clan Smoke Jaguar. Its crew was tortured, drugged, and brainwashed to reveal information about the Inner Sphere's current politics and status. Using this, the leaders of Smoke Jaguar used selective information leaks to trick their fellow clans into supporting the invasion of the Inner Sphere, with Clan Wolf being the only clan to vote against it. Ironically, Clan Wolf was the clan founded by Nicholas. The clan invasion was devastating for the Inner Sphere, as the clans had far superior technology and mechs. They had the super advanced Omni-Mech designs, which gave the clans the tactical advantage of changing mech loadouts on the fly to better adjust for conflict zones. Also, Comstar secretly allied with the clans to sabotage and hinder the Inner Sphere defenses. It was basically a desperate rush from the clans to take the Inner Sphere, though they eventually hit a brick wall because, like everyone else, they forgot how big space is. Turns out the advantage of the Inner Sphere was just sheer numbers. Corporations and the great houses could just pay people to get into a mech and throw it at the clans. The Inner Sphere defenders could just replace their losses, but the clans couldn't. Seeing this, Comstar quietly withdrew their support of the clans, and with some clans seeing weakness or getting tired of the invasion, they turned on their allies and began helping the Inner Sphere. This led to the clan invasion era ending in 3061, and the Civil War era beginning immediately after. Now note, Catalyst Games' tabletop game is mostly centered around the clan invasion and times before that, though we still do have rules and units for the other timelines in the game. This is where things get a bit muddied, as after the Civil War era, we have the ill-named Jihad era. And I'm not going to dance around this, because this was written in the 2000s, and although the name is something used in the Islamic religion, it was used in poor taste here. This era can just be called the Blackest Era, or the Stone Era. Basically, Battletech's history is up to the year 3152, where the Inner Sphere and the clans kind of just continue doing what they always do. Fight. The major great houses and clans see drastic changes, with powers rising and falling. Currently, the leader of the new Star League is Alaric Ward, with clans Jade Falcon and Smoke Jaguar, who were thought to be wiped out in the Civil War era, coming back and siding with Ward, along with Comstar going from the most powerful group in the setting to suffering the same fate as Umbrella Corp did in the Resident Evil games, losing all their power and being defunct as of 3152 in the universe. Though, even in 3150s, there are still tons of battles going on, tons of lost tech and territory to find and conquer, and plenty of mercenaries looking for work. Battletech's universe is deep, complex, and clearly full of characters and life. Each faction, from the great houses to the clans, to even individual mercenary companies, all have deep and rich backstories that you can easily get sucked into. Sure, everyone has access to the same technology, mechs, and tanks, but each group has their preferred versions or designs, whether it be due to cultural reasons, strategic preferences, or literally just what they can scrounge up, meaning you can find the group that best speaks to you and stick with them. Currently, the Free Worlds League and Clan Ghost Bear are my favorites. The scale of the game of Battletech is much smaller than games like 40k and Trench Crusade. You, and however many other players, do battle with usually 3 to 5 mechs each on a hexagonal grid map. Each mech has its own character sheet that has the unit's stats and helps you keep track of mech damage, though other expansions have seen the addition of tanks, planes, and even small power armor units to flesh out your squads, which are called lances in-game. Mechs are divided up into light, medium, heavy, and assault classes to give you more strategic options on how you want to play, with light mechs being the fastest but squishiest mechs, and assault mechs being the slowest but sturdiest guys around. There's also a faster way to play called Alpha Strike if you just want to play a very fast and quick game of Battletech over the slower version of character sheets and such. If you don't want to play the tabletop game though, there are the MechWarrior games, with MechWarrior 5 Clans focusing on the clan invasion era, while the Battletech video game is essentially a simulation of the tabletop game. If you want to drive mechs, I recommend MechWarrior 5 Clans, as its DLC has been mostly worth it. God, this was a bit outside my comfort zone. So when we come back, it will be back to Warhammer again. We have the new Patreon poll to thank for the next video, so if you want to say what we talk about next, go subscribe. Not only is it supporting me by helping me keep the lights on, but you get access to exclusive content and get to see videos earlier than you do here on YouTube. If we get to 15k subs here on YouTube, I'll review and stream Warhammer 40k's Fire Warrior. Next time, though, we will be doing the Need to Know on 40k's version of Elves, the Craft World Eldar. See you all next time.